We are going to begin in the supplements on page 2. Page 2 of the supplements. Ma yafe hayom, Shabbat shalom. Ma yafe hayom, Shabbat shalom. Shabbat, Shabbat shalom. Shabbat, Shabbat shalom. Shabbat, Shabbat shalom. Shabbat shalom. Ma yafe hayom. Shabbat shalom. Ma yafe hayom. Shabbat shalom. Shabbat shalom, everybody. It is nice to see you and to be here together, or to be joining in on YouTube. Wherever you are, I hope you are warm and dry. It's nice to be inside here, sheltered from the weather out there. And if you are on YouTube, I hope that you have gone to the link to get the PDF of the prayers and the words that we'll be using tonight. That link was in the same link that gave you the connection for the YouTube stream as well. So you might want those. And if you do, I apologize, because the next thing that we're doing is not in that part of the PDF. It's later on in the service, but I didn't think to put it in the beginning. For those of you in the room, what I'm talking about is this page here, which I hope you picked up on the way in. It is a new version, or I should say new to us version, of the prayer Hashkivenu, the prayer for God's protection at night, that we'll be singing it later on in the service. But before we get there, or rather, so that we'll be ready for it when we get there, I wanted to teach it now. So it goes like this. Well, first of all, the Hebrew words, which are there transliterated as well, are Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu L'Shalom, V'ha'amidenu Malkeinu L'Chaim, Ufros Aleinu Sukat Shlomecha, which literally means, lay us down at night, Adonai our God, in peace, and raise us up again, our ruler, to life. Spread over us the shelter of peace, of your peace. And so the English below it is a kind of loose translation of it, but we'll be singing those words. So it goes like this. Well, actually, I'm gonna sing a line and ask you to sing it back to me. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu L'Shalom, L'Shalom. Try that. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu L'Shalom, L'Shalom. Listen. V'ha'amidenu Malkeinu L'Chaim. Try that. V'ha'amidenu Malkeinu L'Chaim. Let's do just those two lines. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu L'Shalom, L'Shalom, V'ha'amidenu Malkeinu L'Chaim. It goes on like this. Ufros Aleinu Sukat Shlomecha. Try that. Ufros Aleinu Sukat Shlomecha. Now listen. Ufros Aleinu Sukat Shlomecha. Ufros Aleinu Sukat Shlomecha. Then it goes, Amen. Let's try Amen. Amen. Let's just try from Ufros. Ufros Aleinu Sukat Shlomecha. Ufros Aleinu Sukat Shlomecha. Amen. Let's try this whole first part. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom, l'shalom. V'ha'amidenu malkeinu l'chaim. Ufros aleinu sukat shlomecha, ufros aleinu sukat shlomecha. Amen. Now the English goes like this. Shelter us beneath thy wings, O Adonai. Let's try that line. Shelter us beneath thy wings, O Adonai. Now this line. Guard us from all harmful things, O Adonai. Try that. Guard us from all harmful things, O Adonai. Now this. Keep us safe throughout the night. Try that. Keep us safe throughout the night. Listen. Till we wake with morning's light. Now you. Till we wake with morning's light. Good. Teach us, God, wrong from right. Amen. Try that. Teach us, God, wrong from right. Amen. Let's try the whole English section. Shelter us beneath thy wings, O Adonai. Guard us from all harmful things, O Adonai. Keep us safe throughout the night, till we wake with morning's light. Teach us, God, wrong from right. Amen. Now the last part is amen. It goes like this. Amen. Try that one. Amen. Listen. Amen. Try that. Amen. Listen. Amen. Try that one. Amen. Amen. That one. Amen. Just the amens. Amen. 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 That's the whole song. A lot of pieces, but it'll make more sense as we put it together. So let's try it from the beginning. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom, l'shalom. V'ha'amidenu malkeinu l'chaim. Ufros aleinu sukat shlomecha, ufros aleinu sukat shlomecha. Amen. Shelter us beneath thy wings, O Adonai. Guard us from all harmful things, O Adonai. Keep us safe throughout the night, till we wake with morning's light. Teach us, God, wrong from right. Amen. 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 So now you'll be ready for it when we get to it later on in the service. So I suspect that many of you remember that Rabbi Jody Seawald Smith worked here at TCS for 11 years. Prior to her tenure, Rabbi Michelle Lenke served here for 4 years, and before that, Rabbi Sharon Glass was here for 1 year. So perhaps it's understandable that when Rabbi Smith was followed by Rabbi Eric Mollo, one child turned to its parent and said, "I didn't know boys could be rabbis." The Torah portion that we read this week contains many commandments that cover diverse situations that arise within a society. Most of them are a kind of case law, saying that if something happens, then this is what should be done about it. Very few of these laws distinguish between men and women, either in who does it or who the action is done to. But in other areas of Jewish life, especially in the more ritual commandments, the distinctions between the genders are more pronounced. Sometimes the Torah actually specifies a gender, and sometimes a custom arises later around a particular mitzvah that only one gender tends to do it. But because one of the fundamental principles of Reform Judaism is egalitarianism, that is, with very few exceptions, all mitzvot are open to all genders, those situations where one gender is specified or accustomed pose a particular challenge to Reform Jews and Reform congregations, and so they demand study and reflection. A couple of months ago, a congregant asked me why it is that at TCS we only have women light the Shabbat candles. Sometimes family members accompany the candlelighter, but the primary person is always female. The congregant knew that this was the Jewish custom, but since we claim to be egalitarian, and in most ways we are, why have we kept that gender distinction? And I thought that was a great question. It has certainly been our custom, as it is in many places, but does it have to be? So I brought the issue to the ritual committee to discuss. We had a fascinating conversation about it and decided that we wanted to share what we studied with the congregation to get broader input into the issue before we return to it to make our recommendation. So tonight, I'd like to study this topic with you and invite your feedback. I don't think I have enough copies for everybody, so some people will have to share, but sure, thank you. Thank you. There's a lot to cover, so don't be intimidated by the size of the packet. It's actually only 3 pages. But there's a lot to cover, so I'm going to go fairly quickly. But as always, please, by all means, stop me to ask questions. Does everybody have one now, or at least the ability to see one? Okay, so here's the story. Ooh, we're buzzing already. Okay, so while there are several commandments about Shabbat in the Torah, we are never explicitly commanded there to light candles. It's only later in the Talmud, that is, in the first centuries CE, it's only in the Talmud that candlelighting is described. But even there, we don't get an explicit, "thou shalt light candles on Shabbat" kind of statement. Rather, we see that candlelighting seems to be taken as a given, and the discussion is about how it is done rather than whether it should be done. So our first text here comes from the section of the Talmud on Shabbat and is part of a discussion about what is appropriate to use to light the candles. I'm going to read it, but first let me just point out the way that these translations tend to work is that the bold-faced text is the literal translation of the actual words in the Talmud. The lighter print is filler to help the Talmud make more sense for us English speakers. Okay, so it fills in the gaps to help us understand what they're talking about. Okay, So the topic here really is, what can we use to light the Shabbat candles? Rabbi Yishmael says that kindling a lamp on Shabbat with tar is prohibited. The Talmud then asks, what's the reason for this? Rava, another rabbi, said, because its odor is bad, so the sages issued a decree prohibiting the use of tar, lest one forsake the light and leave. In other words, if you light your candles with tar, it's going to smell so bad, you're not going to be able to stay in the room. Okay? Abaye, another rabbi, says, so let him leave. He's lit the candles, why does he have to stay in the room? What obligation is there to sit next to the light? Rava replied, because I say that kindling Shabbat lights is an obligation. We're obligated to light the lights, and not only to light the lights, but to stay there with them for some time. One is required to eat specifically by that light in deference to Shabbat. It's part of the Shabbat observance to eat by the light of the Shabbat candles, according to Rava. And so, if you light with something that reeks, you're not going to want to stay in the room, you're not going to want to eat there, you're going to leave. You haven't really fulfilled what it is to light the Shabbat candles, to light them and to enjoy them. This is the first place, or at least one good early example of, when we are told that kindling Shabbat lights is an obligation. That's the important point of the section. It doesn't really use the word mitzvah. It's a different term. It's a chova, but the idea is the same, that we are obligated to light the Shabbat candles. Any questions on this text? Oh, so there are other rabbis in other places who will also say kindling Shabbat lights is an obligation. We'll see that. We'll see it in another text as well. Yeah, I mean, so good. So one of the things we're going to see in a little bit is another setting that lighting the Shabbat candles helps to set the whole mood of Shabbat, right? That it's about the enjoyment, right? It's better than sitting in the dark. Right? It helps to bring joy to Shabbat, to be able to have the candles lit. Okay. All right. The next text comes still in the Talmud, from 6 pages in the Talmud later, and it claims that women have a special responsibility to light candles, or rather, that women who aren't careful about lighting candles get severely punished. And I apologize in advance. But this is the text that we have. For 3 transgressions, women are punished and die during childbirth. For the fact that they are not careful in observing the laws of a menstruating woman, and not careful in separating challah from the dough, and not careful in lighting the Shabbat lamp. Okay? So the text identifies these 3 mitzvot as being particularly important for women. Being careful around menstruation, separating out challah, and lighting the Shabbat candles. So this is not our main point, but just because of the way this text is phrased, I feel the obligation to say that from the standpoint of the ancient rabbis, everything happens for a divinely directed reason. So when there's a tragedy, there's got to be a reason for it, right? So when they see a uniquely female death, right? Only women die in childbirth, right? Then it must be a consequence of a uniquely female sin, right? That there must have been something specific to females that person did wrong, okay? So that I think is the setup for this text, that women are particularly obligated in these 3 ways, and if they transgress them, then this could be the punishment for it, okay? I'm happy to talk later about any of those ideas, but for now, the focus is on the idea that women have a special obligation to light the candles. Okay, that's the force of this text for our conversation at the moment. Any questions about that? Okay. So why? Why would women have a special obligation to light the candle? We get an answer about that from the Midrash, which is probably a couple centuries later, 8th and 9th century CE. And by the way, you're probably not going to like this text any better than you liked the last one, but here we go. The Midrash says, this is a Midrash on Noah, although it's not obviously related to Noah here. Why is a woman charged with the duty of lighting the Shabbat lights? It was she, that is Eve, who extinguished the light of Adam by causing his death. As it is written, the spirit of man is the light of Adonai. Therefore she is obliged to observe the commandment to light the Shabbat lights. What's going on here? The idea is that Eve killed Adam, right? Killed, sort of in quotes. She killed him by sentencing him to mortality because she gave him the fruit, right? The fruit that led to the punishment of mortality, right? So she killed him by giving him the fruit. There's this Proverbs verse that says that the spirit of man is the light of Adonai. So she extinguished Adam's spirit, right? Killed him. She equals extinguishing the light. And therefore, because she extinguished that light, she has to kindle other lights. Okay? You with me? All right. What? Yeah, so good. I think not liking it is probably the right response here. Because we read the text even we don't like them, we struggle with them, and we can say we don't like them. So fortunately, Maimonides is going to give us a different explanation that may not quite appeal to us either, but it's, I think, maybe a little better than this one. But first, does anybody have any questions about the Midrash? All right. So about 3 or 4 centuries after this Midrash, in the 12th century, Maimonides, who is perhaps the greatest medieval philosopher, gives us a different rationale. This is the text at the bottom of the page. In his master code called the Mishnah Torah, he writes, about lighting the Shabbat candles, he writes, women have a greater obligation in this regard than men, for they are normally at home and are involved in the household tasks. Okay, because the women are in charge of the house, they are responsible for lighting the candles. That may not ring quite as well for us, but it was probably a much more accurate description in the 12th century. Okay? However, Maimonides goes on to say, nevertheless, a man should alert them concerning this matter and check that they have done so. Because even though they're responsible for it, they can't really be responsible for it, so the men have to make sure that it's going to happen. I'm sorry, Denise. I see your look. Okay, so the women have responsibility for the household. They have to light the candles, but the man also ought to remind her to make sure that it happens. Questions about that? John?
Why is this just coming up in the 3rd, 9th, and 12th century? Is the first reference to this item?
It may not be the first reference to it, but it's the sort of the most organized way that it's done. Part of what Maimonides does here is he really writes, since the time of the Talmud, he writes the first really well-organized legal code that puts all these commandments in a well-structured way, this whole section about all the Shabbat rules. So it's easiest to access this way. Okay. All right, so far we're sort of laying the foundation that we have to light the Shabbat candles, and women seem to have, so far at least, a special connection with lighting the candles. But now it goes in a little different direction. This text that we read already may have been a little bit unfair to Maimonides because a little bit before this text, he mentioned the man's role a little more neutrally than he did in the text that we already read. So on the back, on the first text on the second page, in Sabbath 5:1, he writes, and this again, Sandy, is another reference, although he's probably quoting the Talmud here. He says, the kindling of a Sabbath lamp is an obligation. Okay? And then he goes on to say, both men and women are obligated to have a lamp lit in their homes on Shabbat. Okay? It's not just women. Men have to have a lamp lit in their homes on Shabbat. And it's so important, even if a person does not have food to eat, he should beg from door to door and purchase oil to kindle a lamp, for this is included in the mitzvah of delighting in Shabbat. Okay? Lighting the Shabbat candles is part of delighting in Shabbat. That's the overarching mood that we're supposed to be setting that night. It is more important than the food that we eat. So even if you don't have food, you've got to go get the oil to light the candles for Shabbat. Okay? By the way, ritual committee loved it when I pointed this out, so I'm going to try it again and push my luck. The word delighting in Shabbat, the Hebrew, is oneg Shabbat. Oneg Shabbat is not cookies. It is delighting in Shabbat, which cookies help, but it's not just the cookies. It's the whole atmosphere. It's the whole experience of Shabbat, which the candles enhance. Okay? That's why we need to do it, because it gives us delight in Shabbat. Both men and women. Any questions about that? All right, so moving right along. 2 centuries after Maimonides, we get a 14th century legal code called the Tur, which we're not really going to read right now because all it does is it collates all the discussion so far. It reiterates that both men and women are obligated, but women are more obligated than men because of the reasons that we already mentioned. We've already seen everything that it says here. Similarly, 200 years after that, the next text from the Shulchan Aruch, which is the 16th century legal code, and really, to this day, the most authoritative legal code. The Shulchan Aruch, again, says the same thing, and it actually quotes Maimonides verbatim here to say, both men and women are obligated to have a lamp lit in their homes on Shabbat. Even if a person does not have food to eat, he should beg from door to door and purchase oil to kindle a lamp, for this is included in the mitzvah of oneg Shabbat. Women are more responsible since they are present in the home and engaged in the household needs. All of this we've seen already. Any questions? All right, so now the Shulchan Aruch goes further than this. And it says at the bottom of the page, males who travel away from their homes to study must ignite the Shabbat lamp in their rooms and bless over them. But one who is married need not ignite in his room and bless over them because his wife blesses in his stead. So let's take this apart a little bit. On the one hand, men have to light the candles in their room. Okay? This is now an obligation on the men, specifically, that they have to light them. On the other hand, married men don't have to because their wife will. Okay? But unmarried men have to light. Married men don't have to. Questions about that? Yes, there's one question, or at least one subtlety about this, and that is that the words are that the married men don't have to. It's not married men don't, right? It's not married men are prohibited from lighting the candles. It's married men don't have to. Okay, they're not obligated to. The presumption is that their wife is going to do it, but they still are able to. Okay. All right, Ruth. All right, good. Let's actually go on to the next text because that is probably more similar to this next situation. Okay. So this is also from this discussion in the Shulchan Aruch, just a little bit farther on. It continues, and this is now the top text on the last page. 2 or 3 men who eat in one place, and the implication here, Ruthie, is that it's just men eating together, no women there. 2 or 3 men who eat in one place, that is, they're eating together. There are those who say that each one blesses on his own lamp, but this is a fumbling of the issue. And it is correct to be wary of ambiguous blessings, so only one should bless. What's this saying here? The wording's a little convoluted. The point is that men have to light. If there are no women around, men have to light. The only issue here is whether they light as one big group together or whether each of them lights as individuals. Okay? Is each individual man obligated to light, or is it just obligated for there to be a light in the room? And you can see that there's a debate about that, right? There are those who say that each one blesses on his own lamp, but that's wrong. That's what the Shulchan Aruch is saying. But then, in parentheses, where it says Rama, that's a commentary on the Shulchan Aruch. The Shulchan Aruch is a Sephardi document. The Rama is an Ashkenazi commentator. The Ashkenazi commentator says, but this is not our practice. Again, just to take it apart, the Shulchan Aruch says, some say each one should bless on their own, but that's wrong. The Ramah then says, but that's not right. This one is. Okay, so you can see the back and forth, but the point is, whether it's as a group or as individuals, men without women around, okay, have to light. Jane?
I have a question. What about when she's out and they get married to men, women to women, whatever goes on?
Yeah.
So how do they do? Now that goes
Good. I think I'm on solid ground to say that the Shulchan Aruch did not discuss that particular scenario. Right. But hold on to it, because that's exactly where we're going. Okay. Well, not quite exactly where we're going, but where we're going is to the world that the Shulchan Aruch didn't envision. Okay. So what we've done so far is really summarize the traditional perspective on this issue. Are there any other questions about the text that we've read so far? Okay, so the traditional perspective is, we've learned, traditionally both women and men needed to light the candles. There's no prohibition on men lighting candles, but customarily, if women were present, they would do it. Okay. However, and this, Jane, gets sort of more to your point, as with so many other commandments that are either obligated or restricted by gender, the Reform movement and we, us as egalitarian Jews, we no longer observe those qualifications, right? So for us, I mean, your scenario is our world, right? And we don't observe those qualifications about this or other kinds of things. So the last text here on the page is a responsum from 1981 from the Central Conference of American Rabbis, which is the Reform Rabbinical Organization, of which I'm a member. Just to say a word about responsa. Responsa is a genre of Jewish legal writing in which someone with a religious question sends that question to a scholar or a group of scholars who then analyze it, research it, and then respond officially to it. The respondent usually summarizes the traditional text, the traditional perspective, before taking into account any new or contemporary considerations. The CCAR has a responsa committee, and what this text here shows us is a question that they got and the relevant part of the answer that the committee gave. Okay? So here's the question. It has thus far been customary for a woman to light the candles at the Friday evening service and for a man to recite the Kiddush. Does the woman have a primary responsibility for lighting candles, or is this only a matter of custom? Is there value in the current synagogue practice, which encourages a woman to light candles and a man to lead the Kiddush? Or is there a middle ground, which would permit a man, on rare occasion, to light the candles and the woman to lead the Kiddush? Okay, so that's the question. It's about assigning candles and Kiddush to specific genders. Right? Are these gender assignments important or meaningful or necessary, or can we disregard them? That's the question. Here's the answer. The first paragraph summarizes what we've already read. This is the traditional perspectives. Lighting the Shabbat candles at home is a mitzvah which was primarily assigned to women, but not exclusively. It is one of the 3 mitzvot specifically commanded to women, as also stressed by the Shulchan Aruch, yet the duty of executing this commandment rests upon both men and women. If a male is traveling alone, he is responsible for lighting the Shabbat candles. Okay, that we've seen already. We're done with that. The second paragraph, which we don't really need to read right now, says that traditionally, someone who is not required to fulfill a mitzvah cannot do it for others. Okay, unless they're obligated to do it themselves, they're not eligible to lead it for the group. And the traditional perspective is that women are not obligated to lead Kiddush for reasons that I can go into later if you'd like. But because they're not obligated to lead Kiddush, they're not allowed, traditionally, to lead it for the congregation. Okay, that's the answer to the Kiddush part, I should say. That's the traditional answer to the Kiddush part of the question. Okay? But that's traditional. Now comes the Reform answer. This is the last paragraph, and this is the key part. Naturally, this conclusion has been rejected by Reform Judaism in keeping with its emphasis on the equality of men and women. Either mitzvah, lighting the candles or Kiddush may be performed by women both at home and at a public service. Although it has been customary for women to light the candles and for men to recite the Kiddush, there is absolutely nothing within Reform tradition which would preclude a reversal of these roles. This would be appropriate both at home and in the synagogue. In keeping with the current emphasis on equality, it would be good to vary the practice in the synagogue. Okay. So, I mean, that's a, thank you, Marjorie. So Jane, that's a partial answer to your scenario, is Reform Judaism would say, doesn't matter, anybody can do it. No reason to restrict it to one gender or the other. Okay. Any questions about the response? Okay, so the conclusion of the responsum is it would be good to vary the practice in the synagogue. And indeed, anecdotally, many Reform synagogues do vary the practice. A few months ago, a Reform rabbi asked the Central Conference of American Rabbis Facebook group if men ever lit the candles at Shabbat services without women accompanying them. That post received more than 50 responses, and virtually all of them were enthusiastically positive about men being able to light the Shabbat candles. Virtually all. A couple of responses suggested that, although they do offer men the opportunity to light candles, there had been, or may still be, some resistance on the part of certain congregants to having men do it. And also, a few answers indicated that while they do offer men this opportunity, some men are hesitant to accept the honor. Any questions about the Facebook posting?
What about non-binary?
Yeah, so that didn't come up explicitly in the post, except from the respondents who said that they don't determine by gender. That is to say, they don't limit it to females, which then means anyone can do it. Anyone of any gender identity can do it. Okay. So this pretty much covers the Ritual Committee's study about it, and the meeting sort of concluded with the committee recognizing that legally and philosophically, the gender of who lights the candles should not matter. It should not be restricted to women. However, nevertheless, emotionally, customs are very powerful. So we wanted to invite comment and conversation from the congregation about this. Actually, I wrote about this for my March-April newsletter, which you'll see soon. It's going to be the topic of the conversation at the next Tucci's talk, to provide more opportunity for different groups of people to discuss. We're trying to get feedback so that for our next meeting, the second week in March. So, what do you think about this? Actually, first let me ask anyone who's here on the anyone here who is on the Ritual Committee, is there anything that I sort of left out of the summary or reporting on the conversation? Okay, all right, good, thanks. Okay, reactions. Ken, go ahead.
I was under the impression that women lit the candles because they were at home making the dinner while the guy was out. In the olden days, not now. I could be in my house. But they were there to light the candles, whereas the man was rushing in at the end of his day, and the woman would light the candles when he was getting ready to wash up, and Shabbat begins at sundown.
Yeah, so I'm just going to repeat for anyone who's on YouTube who gets the mic. So the question is, or the comment is, that that women may have been the ones who lit the candles because the men weren't home at the right time. They were at synagogue or wherever they were rushing around. They would rush. There was the women who were home and able to light candles at the correct time. I think that's an extension of Maimonides' point that the women have responsibility for the home and therefore they're able to do the things that need to be done in that way. It's a little ironic because I alluded to this before. I didn't go into it, but the reason that women aren't obligated to lead Kiddush is that women are exempt from any mitzvah that has to be done at a particular time. because they might be otherwise occupied or otherwise not able to do it. Except this, right? Lighting candles, which does have to be done by a certain time, they do have to do. So I think that falls into that category of sort of explaining how it got to be women's, associated with women, because they were home to do it and they have the responsibility for the home. Okay. Other comments?
I don't think that happens much anymore, where the woman's at home and the husband's rushing.
Well,
I know you didn't mean it that way, but
No,
more often than not, the women are rushing in.
right, and that's
he doesn't.
and right, and that's a different level of the issue. But one of the reasons that the reform movement sort of moved candle lighting to the temple, because it may not be happening at home because things are too hectic or whatever the reason is. To do it at temple with the community present, like the Shulchan Aruch text about how lighting for one big group, right? Not each individual has to do it. One big group can do it, so we do it as one big group.
That brings us to the temple as to whether who's lighting the
Right.
candles.
So this is my question. What are your thoughts about this issue here? Elaine? Okay.
I don't think male, female, as long as the candles are lit.
Okay. Again, I'm just going to repeat for YouTube. Elaine's vote is it doesn't make a difference as long as the candles are lit. Male, female, it doesn't matter. Okay. Ruthie, and then Adam.
Like the candles, the blessing over is much. And the candles are functional. This was done when there were no lights, so we really were bringing light. When we're doing this already lights. So first the blessing is important, because you're bringing light to a place that's really dark.
Okay.
Then you go as far.
Right, so the blessing is important also, although the blessing isn't about the light, it's about the commandment to light the candles, right? Right, which relates in us lighting it, but so the issue is, should that be restricted to one gender or the other? Adam?
Ruthie's still part of it.
Okay.
It was the same thing, it just said light, it doesn't mention the blessing in any of that we read. And then as far as what we do, is that different from other congregations where the woman that comes up to the light really doesn't sing, it's David, right? Like there are other congregations that the person that comes up is the only one.
Yeah. So first of all, again, YouTube. Again, the question was also observing the blessing piece, and the question about whether the people who come up are the ones who say the blessing, or whether here we have David, or tonight you get me to lead the blessings. So first of all, I think a couple of the texts did say that they light and bless, but anyway, the point is that our custom here tends to be, or I should say the presumption here, is for the musical service leader to lead the blessing, which takes some of the pressure off of the lighter to be able to know and sing the blessing and be comfortable with it. We do have some people. Look, hi Ruthie. We do have some people who sing the blessings themselves, and that's great. If someone else wants to do it, that's totally fine. But we're here to catch that. Jane, did I see your hand up before? No. Okay. All right. Steve.
I think even more important is the all-inclusiveness. That we don't say men or women, that it should be open to all genders or non-binary.
Okay, so there's a vote for being open to all genders. So, okay. Ken?
In our house, Shabbat really didn't start until the whole family came together. So we didn't have to have it at any particular time. Didn't have to be right at sundown. Every holiday began in the
Yeah.
So lighting the candles was whoever wanted really to light.
Yeah, so Shabbat begins when the family's together, when you light the candles, regardless of what the time is. It's interesting because I think that's true for most liberal Jews as well, and in a way, it has a textual basis because we're told to make Shabbat, right? That Shabbat, and although Friday night always comes, it's not really Shabbat unless we make it Shabbat. And one of the ways that we make it Shabbat is by lighting the candles, right? Setting that whole Oneg Shabbat mood for our house, for our community, right? And so whatever time it is, right? I mean, technically, one could say it was Shabbat, an hour or more ago when the sun went down, but we haven't lit candles yet. So it'll be more Shabbat, right? Once we've made it, once we light the candles together.
This is the reason I'm no longer conservative towards Orthodox, that Reform allows you to do your own interpretation.
Right. Reform gives us that flexibility. Esther, was that your hand?
Yeah, I just wanted to a note that I did see a gentleman at a synagogue lighting the candle, and it was we were at a Friday night service in Falmouth, okay? And it was a musical evening actually. It was very nice, and one of the male members of the band came over at the beginning and took the candle and played the guitar and said, look over. And I remember saying, oh my, I've never seen that before. Isn't that nice? And it was interesting.
Okay, so that's a good anecdotal report that you saw it happen at a congregation, and it was unusual, but it was nice. Okay, great. Judy, did I see your hand?
Well, I was thinking the same thing that and just that women are now really happy to to me, it's less of a change if they're not really saying a prayer or reading a prayer for
because here, the-
just lighting,
right, just lighting as opposed to really doing the blessing.
which is kind of traditionally the piece that women do.
Yeah. So, right. So it wouldn't be that much of a change because we're already not doing what tradition would have the women do, anyway. Okay. Denise.
Had you not brought this up and you said Joe was going to go off the light panel, I wouldn't have thought twice about it. It wouldn't even occur to me that I'd never seen a man do it.
Okay. Good. So if we had just done it, jumped into a man doing it, wouldn't have fazed you. So okay. All right. Good. Ruthie.
I wonder how men feel about lighting. So they're so used to seeing a woman do it. How physically in their bodies do they feel when they light it? Do they feel uncomfortable?
Yeah. So the question is how men feel about doing it. And again, from some of my colleagues, they have said that when they've approached some men to do it, they've been reluctant. Now, the truth is, sometimes when I approach women to light the candles, they're reluctant to do it also. But right, so it's not clear where the reluctance comes from. Right. But again, I mean, so this is the what I was alluding to about sort of the emotional power of the custom, right? That there is a sense, there's a custom, there's a past practice, right, that we're used to seeing women doing it, right? And so for a man to be comfortable doing it sort of requires making that shift to say there's no reason, right? And for people in the congregation to see a man doing it and to be able to have that little moment, as Esther said, of, oh, that's unusual, but then to get to, that's nice, right? I'm glad you got to it's nice instead of to that's wrong, right? Not that you would get to that's wrong, but some people might go to that's wrong, right? Why aren't women doing this? So, all right, last comment, Ruth.
It's like asking me for a dress, in a sense. How would you feel? That's the woman's role.
Well, I was going to make that the last comment, but yeah. I mean, so right. I mean, I think your point is that it would feel to the man like he was doing something that was supposed to be done by a woman, right? And that's part of why I wanted to study this together, right? To show sort of where the origins of it becoming the custom of done by women comes from, how the reform movement has come to think about that, and what it holds for us. Okay, that's the question, what it holds for us. All right, Micah, you haven't been, I saw your hand, and then we're going to move on. Okay, all right, so we have had a weekend where the woman who was here wasn't comfortable doing it alone, so everybody sort of did it together. Okay, great, thank you for sharing that. Okay, great, this was very helpful and very interesting to talk about, I appreciate it. Ritual committee members, were you taking notes as we were going? No, just kidding, it's being recorded anyway, we can go back to it. All right, here's the irony of the night. I didn't ask anybody to light candles tonight. Would somebody like to light candles tonight? And if you want to do the blessing yourself, you can. I mean, I certainly could, but I lead plenty of the service anyway. All of these possibilities for who could light the candles, and nobody is volunteering to do it. All right, Ruthie, are you saying?
Only if I have a guy behind me.
All right.
Do I have to do the lighting, I guess?
You do
Would you
actually
like me
do
to do the reading first?
if you want, or you can just go to the light.
Just do the, okay. Oh, you want to light it? I don't. You don't? Can you light it? Is it okay? Yeah. Okay, let him light it. There's 2 candles, so you can do the other one. That's, I know this happened. You light it quick.
Quick, it's gonna
Quick. You're going to get the next one, okay?
just.
Good job, nice job.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh.
Okay. Let's get all that light, so let's spread it all over ourselves, okay? Ready? Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech ha'olam, asher kiddushenu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu lahadlik ner, shel Shabbat. Okay?
Good teamwork, everybody.
Yep.
Thank you. On page 13 of the Siddur, we welcome the Shabbat angels of peace and joy. Shalom Aleichem. Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharet, Malachei Elyon, Mimelech, Malachei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharet, Malachei Elyon, Mimelech, Malachei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharet, Malachei Elyon Mi Melech Malchei Hamlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu Bochem L'Shalom Malachei Shalom Malachei Elyon Mi Melech Malchei Hamlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu Bochem L'Shalom Malachei Shalom Malachei Elyon Mi Melech Malchei Hamlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu Bochem L'Shalom Malachei HaShalom Malachei Elyon Mi Melech Malchei Hamlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu Baruchuni L'Shalom Malachei Shalom Malachei Elyon Mi Melech Malchei Hamlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu Baruchuni L'Shalom Malachei Shalom Malachei Elyon Mi Melech Malchei Hamlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu Baruchuni L'Shalom Malachei HaShalom Malachei Elyon Mi Melech Malchei Hamlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu Tzedchem L'Shalom Malchei Shalom Malachei Elyon Mi Melech Malchei Hamlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu Tzedchem L'Shalom Malchei Shalom Malachei Elyon Mi Melech Malchei Hamlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu Tzedchem L'Shalom Malchei HaShalom Malachei Elyon Mi Melech Malchei Hamlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. On page 14, a love song for Shabbat, Yedid Nefesh. Yedid Nefesh Av HaRachaman Yedid Nefesh Av HaRachaman Meshoch Avdecha El Ritzonecha Meshoch Avdecha Ya la 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 El Ritzonecha Yarutz Avdecha Kemo Ayal Yishtachave Ya la 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 El Mul Hadarecha Yarutz Avdecha Kemo Ayal Yishtachave Ya la 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 El Mul Hadarecha Yedid Nefesh Av HaRachaman Yedid Nefesh Av HaRachaman Meshoch Avdecha El Ritzonecha Meshoch Avdecha Ya la 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 El Ritzonecha. Let's keep a finger on page 21 and turn to page 302. On page 302, let's look at the second meditation there. During the week, the body is drawn in one direction, the soul in another. Often there is no peace between them. On Shabbat, however, the struggle subsides. As the Talmud instructs us, Shabbat candles are meant to bring peace within the home. Their purpose is to bring peace within the person, the home that houses body and soul. It is the glow of their light that gives our being inner radiance and harmony. And now we are ready to welcome Shabbat, page 21, Lecha Dodi, come my beloved, to greet the bride. Lecha Dodi likrat kala, yalla, 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 pnei Shabbat, nekabela. Lecha Dodi likrat kala, yalla, 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 pnei Shabbat, nekabela. Shamor v'zachor b'dibur echad, Hishmiyanu el hamyuchad, Adonai echad, Ushmo echad, L'shem u'tiferet ve'litila. Lecha Dodi likrat kala, yalla, 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 pnei Shabbat, nekabela. Lecha Dodi likrat kala, yalla, 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 pnei Shabbat, nekabela. Likrat Shabbat, lechu v'nelcha, ki hi mekor haberacha, merosh mikedem nesucha, sof maaseh b'machshavat chila. Lecha Dodi likrat kala, yalla, 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 pnei Shabbat, nekabela. Lecha Dodi likrat kala, yalla, 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 pnei Shabbat, nekabela. Hitoreri, hitoreri, kiva orech, kumi ori, uri, uri, shir daberi, kevod Adonai alayich nigla. Lecha Dodi likrat kala, yalla, 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 pnei Shabbat, nekabela. Lecha Dodi likrat kala, yalla, 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 pnei Shabbat, nekabela. Boi v'shalom, ateret ba'ala, gam b'simcha u'v'tohola, toch emunei am segula, boi chala, boi chala. Lecha Dodi likrat kala, yalla, 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 pnei Shabbat, nekabela. Lecha Dodi likrat kala, yalla, 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 pnei Shabbat, nekabela. Yalla, la, 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 yalla, la, 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 yalla, la, 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 yalla, la, 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 yalla, la, 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 yalla, la, 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 la. Lecha Dodi likrat kala, yalla, 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 pnei Shabbat, nekabela. Lecha Dodi likrat kala, yalla, 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 pnei Shabbat, nekabela. We stay standing as we turn to page 27, Chatzi Kaddish. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, be'alma divrach hiruteh v'yamlich malchuteh, b'chayechon uv'yomechon uv'chayei dechol beit Yisrael, bagala, bagala, uv'izman karib, v'yimeru, amen. Yehi shmei Rabbah mevarach, le'alam l'al me'amaya, yitbarach, yitbarach, v'yishtabach, v'yitpa'ar, v'yitromam, v'yitnaseh, v'yithadar, v'yitaleh, v'yithalal, shmei d'kudesha b'richu, le'la min kol birchata v'shirata, Tushbechata v'nechemata, da'amiran be'alma, v'yimeru, amen. Page 28, Baruch Hu. Baruch Hu et Adonai hamevorach. Baruch Adonai HaMevorach leolam va'ed. Can be seated. And let's keep a finger on page 29, but turn to page 386. Page 386. God, you create day and night, rolling away light before darkness, darkness before light. Thank you for the darkness. Without it, we could not appreciate the light. By the darkness, we can measure blessing, health by sickness, laughter by tears, riches by poverty, freedom by oppression. In the darkness of the night, the Maccabees lit a flame which still illuminates our lives. Thank you for giving them the courage to resist. In centuries of night, Jews defied the darkness and lit flames. And by those slender lights, from torn and tear-soaked prayer books, they pleaded for your mercy and asked an end to exile's night. Thank you for the answer to their prayers and for restoring Israel's light. But still, night reigns in all the world. In the darkness, teach us to light candles. Teach us to light candles even as we do each night in memory of ancient light after darkness. A candle is small. Not far from where it brightly flames, the darkness closes in. But candles light other candles, and light draws strength from light. Each night of life, let us add candles. The candle of hope, the candle of faith, the candle of brave deeds, the candle of freedom. We thank you for the darkness, even as we thank you for the light. Page 29, we give thanks for the gift of the light of Torah. Ahavat olam Beit Yisrael Amcha Havta Torah u'mitzvot Chukim u'mishpatim Otanu limadeta Ken Adonai Eloheinu B'shofenu v'kumenu Nasiach bechukecha V'nismach b'divrei Toratecha U'v'mitzvotecha Le'olam va'ed Ki hem chayenu Ve'orech yameinu Uvahem nega yomam v'layla Ve'ahavatcha atasir b'menu l'olamim Baruch ata Adonai Ohev amo Yisrael Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Le'olam va'ed Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha B'chol levavcha u'b'chol nafshecha u'b'chol me'odecha v'hayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi metzavecha hayom al levavecha v'shinantam levanecha v'dibarta bam b'shivtecha b'veitecha uvlechtecha v'derech uv'shochbecha uv'kumecha וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובישעריך. Page 31 and the sixth line from the top. למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אדוני אלוהיכם אמת. Keep a finger on page 34 and turn to page 367. Page 367. May your eyes sparkle with the light of Torah, and your ears hear the music of its words. May the space between each letter of the scrolls bring warmth and comfort to your soul. May the syllables draw holiness from your heart, and may this holiness be gentle and soothing to you and all God's creatures. May your study be passionate, and meanings bear more meanings, until life arrays itself to you as a dazzling wedding feast. And may your conversation, even of the commonplace, be a blessing to all who listen to your words and see the Torah glowing on your face. On the handout sheet, our prayer for the evening, Hashkivenu. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom, l'shalom, v'ha'amidenu malkeinu l'chayim. Ufros aleinu sukat shlomecha, ufros aleinu sukat shlomecha. Amen. Shelter us beneath thy wings, O Adonai. Guard us from all harmful things, O Adonai. Keep us safe throughout the night, till we wake with morning's light. Teach us, God, wrong from right. Amen. 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 Page 34. The people Israel shall keep Shabbat, making Shabbat. V'shamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ביני ובין בני ישראל עוד היא לעולם, עוד היא לעולם, עוד היא לעולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. כי 6 ימים עשה אדוני Asa Adonai et hashamayim ve'et haaretz v'shamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat lasot et ha-Shabbat ledorotam berit olam. Uvayom hashvi Shavat vayinafash, Shavat vayinafash, Shavat vayinafash. V'shamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat lasot et ha-Shabbat ledorotam berit olam. V'shamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat lasot et ha-Shabbat ledorotam berit olam. We continue with the Amidah, which begins on page 35b. We will begin together on page 35b and then continue individually from there, either with the words of the Siddur through page 38 or with the prayers of our own hearts and our own souls. When you've had as much time as you like for your private prayers, you may be seated. We begin by rising together on page 35b. Adonai sefatai tiftach ufi yagid tehilatecha. Adonai sefatai tiftach ufi yagid tehilatecha. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu ve'Elohei avotenu Elohei Abraham Elohei Yitzchak ve'Elohei Yaakov Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, Bekoneh HaKol, V'zocher Chasdei Avot, Umevi Goel Livnei V'neihem, Leman Shemo Be'ahava, Melech Ozer, Ufoked, Umoshia, Umagen. Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Avraham, Ufoked Sarah. Atah Gibor le'olam Adonai, Mechaye metim atah Rav l'Hoshia. Mashiv haruach umorid hagashem. Mechalkel chayim bechesed, Mechaye metim berachamim rabim. Somech noflim berofeh cholim. Umatir asurim, umekayem emunato, lishenei afar, michamocha bal gevurot, umido melach, melech memit umechaye, umatzmiach Yeshua, v'ne'eman atah lachayot mitim. Baruch atah Adonai mechaye hametim. Atah kadosh v'shimcha kadosh u'kadoshim b'chol yom yahalucha selah. Baruch atah Adonai ha'el hakadosh. The Jewish community suffered a loss this week, particularly the musical community. Last Friday, a wonderful composer named Ben Steinberg died. He was Canadian, based in Toronto, and wrote a tremendous amount of music and taught and had a powerful impact. So we don't do a lot of his music here, except for one piece. Really, I think that we know or should be familiar. We don't do it very often, but I wanted to sing it tonight, play it tonight, try to sing it tonight in his honor, and as a testimony to his impact, and this beautiful setting of Shalom Rav, which is on page 38. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Taseh Leolam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Taseh Leolam. Ki atahu melech adon lechol ha-shalom. Ki atahu melech adon lechol ha-shalom. V'tov b'einecha levarech et amcha Yisrael bechol עת ובכל שעה בשלומך. ברוך אתה אדוני המברך את עמו ישראל בשלום. We turn now to our prayers for healing, for our loved ones and friends who are struggling physically or spiritually or emotionally. Tonight in our congregational family, we think particularly of Gloria Aronson, Phyllis Burke, Arthur Campbell, Valerie Frank, Jonathan Gardner, David Glazer, Marilyn Hoffman, Cheryl Leahy, Nancy Mayer, Mark Panasuk, Tracy Paveo, Joseph Roth, Michael Schreiber, Tal Schechter, Cindy Sherman, Elaine Swartz, Marcia Zeidman, Yonina bat David HaKohen v'Sarah, Esther bat Chaim v'Goldi, Fegi bat Shlomo Nisan Halevi. If there's someone for whom you are particularly concerned tonight who is in your prayers, I invite you to say that person's name aloud now.
Jerry Hyman.
We hold them all in our hearts as we turn to the inside back cover of the Siddur and join in Mishaberach. Mishaberach Avotenu Mekor HaBracha Le'imotenu. May the source of strength, who blessed the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Mi sheberach imotenu mekor habracha lavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen. In addition to being a regular Shabbat tonight, tonight is also the last Shabbat of the month in the Jewish calendar. A new month begins this week, and it is a fun month. So there's a blessing that we say to welcome any new month in the Jewish calendar. The blessing is on page 150. And it's customary when we actually announce the month to sing that announcement to a melody from a holiday during the month that is coming. So if you don't know what's coming, you'll recognize it when we sing there. So page 150, together in English. May it be your will, Adonai, our God and God of our ancestors, to reawaken in us joy and blessing in the month ahead. Grant us a long life, a peaceful life with goodness and blessing, sustenance and physical vitality, a life of reverence and piety, a life free from shame and reproach, a life of abundance and honor, a reverent life guided by the love of Torah, a life in which our worthy aspirations will be fulfilled. Amen. May God, who wrought miracles for our ancestors, redeeming them from slavery to freedom, redeem us soon and gather our dispersed from the four corners of the earth in the fellowship of the entire people Israel. And let us say, Amen. Rosh Chodesh Adar Yihiyeh b'yom Revi'i haba aleinu v'al kol Yisrael letova, 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 letova. The new month of Adar with the holiday of Purim will begin on Tuesday night. May it hold blessing for us and for all the people Israel. Yechadshehu HaKadosh Baruch Hu Aleinu v'al kol amo Beit Yisrael l'chaim u'l'shalom l'sason u'l'simcha l'shua u'l'nechama v'nomar Amen. Together in English, may the Holy One bless this new month for us and for all God's people, the house of Israel, with life and peace, joy and gladness, deliverance and consolation. And let us say, Amen. We rise as we turn to page 51 for Aleinu. Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon hakol, latet gedula liotzer breshit, shelo asanu kigoye ha'aratzot, velo samanu k'mishpachot ha'adama, shelo sam chelkenu kahem, v'goralenu kechol hamonam, v'anachnu korim, u'mishtachavim u'modim, lifnei melech, Malchei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Shehu Noteh Shamayim v'Yosed Aharetz, U'moshav Yekaro B'Shamayim Mimal, U'shchinatu zo, Begovei Meromim, Hu Eloheinu Ein Od, Emet Malkeinu Efes Ulato, Kakatuv b'Torato, v'yadata hayom v'hashevota el levavecha, ki Adonai hu ha'Elohim, b'shamayim mimal, v'al ha'aretz mitachat ein od, v'nemar, v'haya Adonai, lemelech al kol haaretz, bayom hahu, yeh Adonai echad, Ushemo echad. You can be seated. As I mentioned earlier, this week's Torah portion contains many commandments that cover diverse situations involved in creating a community and the interpersonal relationships of communal life. Part of this system is determining who is responsible when a person or property is damaged or injured. Chapter 22 gives us two situations back to back that touch on this issue. In the first one, we are told that when an ox gores someone to death, the ox is to be killed, but the owner of the ox is not punished. However, if the ox had gored before and the owner had been warned but did not take appropriate action to prevent the ox from attacking again, then the owner is liable for the death penalty himself. Then, similarly, we are told that if a person digs a pit but doesn't cover it, and an animal falls into it, the person who dug the pit must compensate the owner of the animal. Both of these situations touch on negligence, the idea that the liable person could have prevented a negative outcome, but did not do what they should have done. They knew better because the negative outcome was entirely predictable. We know that particular ox attacks. We know that a pit should be covered. When faced with a foreseeable danger, if we do not take appropriate preventative measures, we bear responsibility for the damage. This past Tuesday was the 5th anniversary of the shooting at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland, Florida, when 14 students and 3 staff members were murdered. The previous day, this past Monday, a shooter killed 3 students and injured 5 more on the campus of Michigan State University. The Gun Violence Archive, which defines a mass shooting as one in which 4 or more people are shot, reports that there have been 72 mass shootings in the U.S. this year. And that does not count the shooting today that I just saw as I was getting ready for services and don't have a lot of details about yet. 72 mass shootings, more than there have been days in the year so far. This is a tragedy. This is 72 tragedies. But it's not a surprise. It is entirely foreseeable. It is the predictable outcome of a permissive gun culture that refuses to take the appropriate and necessary steps to prevent this damage from occurring again. Gun violence is an ox that gores again and again and again. Gun violence is an open pit. While the shooters are the ones who pulled the triggers, they are not the only ones who bear responsibility for this bloodshed. It is on all of us, on our communities, and on our irresolute leaders as well. We are guilty of the negligence that permits these murders. It is our fault too. When will we say enough? And when will we take action to stop it? So as we prepare for Kaddish, we remember the 17 individuals killed at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School and the 3 people killed at Michigan State University and the too many others to number who have died by gun violence this year and in years past. and we recall the loved ones whom death has recently taken from us, those who died at this season in years past, and those whom we have taken into our hearts with our own. Tonight, our congregational family remembers with special affection our loved ones whose yahrzeit will occur this coming week. Bertha Silverman Davis, grandmother of Stuart Silverman. Joseph Kempner, grandfather of Adam Kempner. Jack Connors, stepfather of Diane Siegel. Blanche Burke, mother of Norman Burke. Sandra Ben-Dayan, sister of David Levinson. If you are remembering someone this evening, we invite you to say that person's name aloud now. Zichronam livracha. May the memories of all our dear ones be a blessing. If you're saying Kaddish in someone's memory tonight, we ask you to rise now. In loving support of the mourners, we rise as a congregation. In gratitude to God for the gift of the lives of their loved ones, those who are in mourning and those remembering someone, say Kaddish on page 52. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shmei Rabbah, ve'alma divrach hirutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayeichon uvyomeichon, uv'chayei dechol beit Yisrael, ba'agalau v'izman kariv imru amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mevarach la'alam u'lalmei almaya, Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yithadar v'yit'aleh v'yithalal shmei d'kudsha brichu, le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechamata, da'amiran ba'alma v'imru amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya v'chayim, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'imru amen. May the source of peace send peace to all who mourn and comfort all of the bereaved. And we say, amen. Please be seated. Ruthie, are you doing announcements? Okay. Ruthie Albert, ladies and gentlemen. They are up there.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Welcome to TCS, where we value innovating, education, building community, honoring individuality, drawing meaning from Judaism, and upholding our social responsibilities. All of our programming, including the ones I will mention today, reflect these values. Thank you to the Welcoming Committee for sponsoring tonight's oneg. Torah study tomorrow with Rabbi Carr at 9 a.m. with bagels and coffee in the temple, or remote, without bagels and coffee unless you provide your own. Havdalah service tomorrow is on Zoom at 6 p.m.
Who's leading that?
I wonder, it's not you, I think it's me. Sisterhood is continuing the tradition of their Purim gift bags fundraising. Check your email to participate. TCS Shoveltown 5K race, March 26th. Come right, Adam? Okay. Details in your email and information on the table in the foyer, or if you want real detail, talk to Adam. And get your friends to run. That's more important. That's a good fundraiser for the temple. Save the date, Saturday, May 6th at 7 p.m. Fourth comedy night and raffle at Thorny Lee Golf Club in Brockton. You can win $5,000. The $5,000 cash raffle will be going on. Wonderful odds, only 250 tickets will be sold. Better than the Massachusetts lottery. COVID home test kits, it's still around. The state has provided the town of Easton with free home test kits. If you need any, please take a couple from the table in the foyer. It still is coming around. I know people are testing positive, so if you don't feel well, I suggest you test. Remember, information and links to all activities are included in your weekly emails on Mondays as well as special notices. Please remember to return your name badges, wherever mine is, to the drawers in the foyer before you leave the temple. Thank you. Shabbat Shalom, and drive home
Shalom.
safely.
Thank you, Ruthie. getting people to sign up for the race. There are postcards. There are postcards out in the foyer too. So take some, pass them out, send them to everybody. What do you say if everybody gets one friend to run?
And we had like 500 runners last year, right, Adam?
Yep. So, all right. One other announcement, and that is, I think it went out in this week's emails already, but just a reminder that we turn over the Mishaberach list every 3 months. March 1st is the start of a new list, so if there's someone who is currently on the list and you want them to stay on the list, please contact Merrill to let them know. Hopefully they don't need to be on the list anymore, but if they do, if you want them to stay on the list, please contact Merrill because it starts again first week in March. Our final song is on page 53. Page 53, Yigdal. Yigdal Elohim Chai, v'yishtabach, נמצא ואין אל מציאותו, אחד ואין יחיד כייחודו, נעלם וגם אין סוף לאחדותו. אין לו דמות הגוף ואינו גוף, לא נערוך אליו קדושתו, קדמון לכל דבר אשר נברא, ראשון ואין ראשית לראשיתו. הנו אדון עולם בכל נוצר, יורה גדולתו ומלכותו, שפע נבואתו נתנו אל אנשי סגולתו ותפארתו. לא קם בישראל כמו שעוד, נביא ומביט את תמונתו, תורת אמת נתן לעמו אל, על יד נביאו נאמן ביתו. לא יחליף האל ולא ימיר דתו, לעולמים לזולתו, צופה ויודע סתרנו, מביט לסוף דבר בקדמתו. גומל איש חסד כמפעלו, נותן לרשע רע כרישתו, ישלח לקץ הימין משיחנו, לפדות מחכה קץ ישועתו. מתים יחיה אל ברוב חסדו, ברוך הדעת שם תהילתו. מתים יחיה אל ברוב חסדו, ברוך הדעת שם תהילתו. On page 49, we continue with Kiddush. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu, b'shabbat kodsho, be'ahava uvratzon hinchilanu, zikaron lema'aseh v'reshit. Ki hu yom techila למקראי קודש, זכר ליציאת מצרים. כי בנו בחרת, ואותנו קידשת, מכל העמים, בשבת קודשך, באהבה וברצון, הנחלתנו. Baruch atah Adonai mekadesh HaShabbat. Thank you, welcoming committee, for the oneg, and Ruthie, thank you for the challah. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Shabbat shalom. People on YouTube can come back to Zoom and join us in the foyer. Shabbat shalom, everybody. Oneg is in the multipurpose room. Yeah. Yeah. Very quiet.